Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's episode, I'll be speaking with Natalie in this After Dark. She's 40 years old now, but she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in her teens. At this moment, she's recovering from drug and alcohol addiction, and this is her story. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink AG1.com/juicebox. If you are the caregiver of someone with type 1 diabetes or have type 1 yourself, please go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and complete the survey. This should take you about 10 minutes and will really help type 1 diabetes research. You can help right from your house at t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Dexcom sponsored this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Learn more about the Dexcom G7 at my link, dexcom.com/juicebox. Today's podcast is sponsored by Touched by Type 1. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and at touchedbytype1.org. If you're looking for an organization who's helping people with type 1 diabetes, you're looking for Touched by Type 1.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I am a type 1 diabetic, 40 years old, and I am also a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I guess my story kind of starts back with my mother, who was, I was born and raised the Phoenix area of Arizona. Still live here. Born and raised in the same household my dad still actually lives in. Very stable upbringing in that sense. When it comes to my diabetes, though, it starts with my mom. She was a type 1 diabetic and didn't find out she was a diabetic until she was 8 months pregnant with me and she lost her eyesight. So I immediately was delivered as a C-section, and I was also almost 10 pounds at about 8 months of pregnancy. My diabetes journey really started from the time I was born, even though I wasn't technically born with it. I grew up around, eating back in the 80s. You eat the sweet and low, the Crystal Lights, the diet sodas. Everything was a diabetic diet for a whole entire family. So by the time it came around for me to become a diabetic, it really wasn't that much of a change.
Can you tell me a little bit about your mom, lost her eyesight for good?
No. Once her blood sugars got back under control, she gained her eyesight back.
Okay. That's what I kind of thought you were getting at, but I wasn't 100% certain.
Yeah, no, she got her eyesight back. A little more history with my mom is that she's also an alcoholic. So I grew up with her being in and out of recovery a lot as well, which eventually down the line, which led to her passing from her alcoholism, which affected obviously her diabetes. And so on her death certificate, it said complications of diabetes is why she died.
I'm sorry.
But it was a direct reflection of her not taking care of herself.
I'm so sorry. I can I ask a question? Do you have more context on, so she had type 1, it wasn't gestational.
I think it started off as gestational.
Okay.
But she was diagnosed as type 1. However, she also I think she may have gone to an endocrinologist from my memory, maybe once for the whole time. I don't think it was much of a thing, or she was just so in control. Most of my life, I remember my mom being in such great control of, giving herself insulin. She'd have us give her insulin, so we knew how to give her shots, and we tested our blood sugars and her blood sugars, and she was super strict about diet and exercise. So she really did take care of herself for most of my life, knowing.
Would you consider her a functioning alcoholic, or was she a fall down drunk?
I would say she was more functioning until my parents got divorced.
Okay.
When my parents got divorced, I would think I was 15, 16. I was around high school time.
Mm-hmm.
And when my parents got divorced, my mom, completely different person. She's the one who moved out. My dad finished raising me. And so she moved out, and it was just downhill from that. It was just like one extreme to the other. She got into drugs. She was homeless for some time. Every now and then she'd get sober again, a slew of bad men constantly. It kind of turned into my older sister really took the role of being her parent. Unfortunately, she had that burden on her.
Oh,
so me and my mom became estranged for about 5 years. I was just angry. I was getting through high school. I was with my dad. It was just me and my dad even now, it's mostly just me and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So.
How old was she when she was pregnant with you?
He was 30.
Oh, okay. And you're the youngest?
I am the youngest. Yeah. I have a sister that's 4 years older than me.
Okay. And then how old were you when you were diagnosed?
So here's a funny story or the weird part. I don't have an exact hey, this is what happened. I was in DK, there's no big event that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
It was my mom saw the signs, and I think I was around 11. And growing up, I was a huge dancer. I danced almost every single day, dance studios. I was a cheerleader. I was extremely active. And when I was around 11, my mom started, I guess, noticing the signs in me, the constant being thirsty, the yeast infections, the peeing all the time. And the doctors kind of pushed it off. And I remember going there and they're like, oh, we'd rather just watch her for a little bit. And then once I got into my teenage years, I got into drugs and partying. And of course, I neglected myself. And so I never actually got an official diagnosis until I was almost 18.
Okay.
And then I didn't take care of myself and actually give myself insulin until I became pregnant. And that's when I decided I should live for something. And I was at 19.
About a year later. Hey, did your, when you were growing up, was your mom using in the house, or is that a thing that happened after she left, or was it happening and that's why she left?
The alcoholism in the house, I never knew my mom to do drugs, except for maybe when I was really, really little. She used to have special cigarettes, which I now know it was weed.
Mm-hmm.
But I never saw her really do that. It was mostly just the alcohol. It was very dysfunctional behind closed doors, for sure. My mom was a raging alcoholic. It was being woken up in the middle of the night with my mom on top of my dad with a knife. Tons of fights. It was running to the bedroom, and hiding from everybody. Sister going crazy trying to break up fights. There was a lot of that I think I have chosen to probably block out, or I was too young to really understand what was going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
My sister has some crazy stories that she can tell you. But for me, I remember my childhood being mostly good. And I don't know if that's a defense thing, a mental thing. I don't know what that is, but most of my memories were good. But I do remember that when mom was bad, she was really bad.
Gotcha.
And she was crazy.
Does she have any mental illness that you're aware of?
Definitely depression, probably some anxiety thrown in there. Nothing like bipolar or anything that required, I don't know, her to be necessarily put in a hospital or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But since she's passed, I have found out of a lot of disturbing history, like family history, which has been interesting to find out.
On her side?
On her side, yeah. My mom's an Army brat. And so, she grew up all over the place. But my grandmother is from Australia. And so they lived in Australia when my mom was very young. And just some of the stuff, forgive me, Grandma, but she was a hoe. And she has random kids places. The reason why she married my grandpa, I guess alcoholism runs deep with my grandma. And she was a raging alcoholic as well. So
okay. So
it runs deep on my mom's side.
Are you an alcoholic now?
I am. I'm not. I'm recovering alcoholic.
Okay.
So I was going to say there's parts in my life where alcoholism was definitely the main focus. Obviously it landed me in jail, got a DUI, but meth was my big thing. I never really did the both. It was either one or the other. Either I was off the chain with alcohol, or it was I loved doing meth. Meth was my favorite until it got too real.
What age did you start with? Well, I guess what drug did you try first?
Actually, the very first thing I ever tried was acid.
Oh, jump right in. Yeah.
I know. That was the very first thing I ever did. And I think I was 15. I was in 9th grade. So I was around 15.
How does that happen?
I know. I think I was at a party. It was like one of my very first parties that I ever went to. And so I just remember trying it, and it was fun. And I never did it again, like ever again. Like, it was cool. It was fun. Like, whatever. Like, it was scary to look in a mirror. I think me and my best friend laughed so much we literally peed our pants. Cool experience, whatever. No interest in touching it again. During that time, though, my 9th grade year must have been when my parents got divorced, because that's when I really got out of control. I would drink alcohol while I was sitting in class. I would have vodka in my water bottle and I would drink it. I eventually did get caught once because I threw up all over the floor inside my school. So I got, suspended for that, and I got kicked off of cheerleading. So I'm pretty sure that's the memory that people have of me, as the girl or the cheerleader who threw up all over the hallway in 9th grade.
Jeez. You remember this as good, or you remember like younger years as good?
I remember my younger years as good.
Okay.
I remember my parents being really in love with each other. They would dance together, they would kiss, like we did everything together. We took lots of family trips. They were always very supportive. The whole family was always there together to support each other. We'd always have, we were Girl Scouts. My mom was a troop leader, but nobody knew what was happening behind closed doors when everybody left.
Those cookies are like crack, so maybe that was her start.
Maybe that was really the start of it.
Well, okay. Do you think, looking back now with hindsight, was the laughing and dancing and kissing like mom and dad were drunk in the living room all the time?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when we have these big bonfires in the backyard with the family members, of course, there were tons of alcohol.
Right.
Tons of alcohol.
Did you feel supported emotionally? Did you, if you needed help with homework or a life problem, did you feel like they were there for you?
For the most part, my mother, absolutely.
Okay.
She was also a huge enabler. I never, ever questioned my parents' love for me, I don't think. When it came to, let's say, issues or big things that happened, we were kind of the family that swept it under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this happened. Let's not talk about it later. Just get through it. And we just don't talk about it. You're grounded for a week and that's it. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Do you know who initiated their divorce?
My mom would threaten divorce a lot, but my dad finally pulled the straw on it.
Okay. He's like, hey, you know what? Why don't you actually go?
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm done.
Did your dad clean himself up, or would you call him addicted now?
I feel my dad is a functioning alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely functioning. My dad he drinks a lot, but you won't see him drunk, but you also won't see him without a drink. Maybe
a 12-pack a day kind of thing.
Well, he's a vodka drinker as well, but yes.
Okay.
Yes, he will. He's a vodka drinker. As he's gotten older and his body's hurting, for some reason, I feel, I have absolutely no proof of this, I feel like there might be pain pills involved.
Oh, geez.
But my dad his pride, he will never admit anything.
Did you grow up in poverty? Did you guys have money? Was it like financially?
I would say we were middle class.
Okay.
However, also growing up, my dad my grandparents or my grandpa was an aerospace engineer. And he used to be vice president of TRW,
mm-hmm.
which is now Boeing, I believe. So my dad grew up very wealthy in the Pacific Palisades in California. His godmother was Vivian Vance and she's Ethel from I Love Lucy.
Really?
So he grew up, yeah.
Okay.
He grew up kind of the A-lister lifestyle.
Huh.
So we had everything that we needed and probably most of what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on what I've also found out is the reason that we had the house was because our grandparents bought it. The reason why my parents had the cars they did was because my grandparents bought it. So,
do you think your parents grew up poorly?
My dad did not. Absolutely no.
Okay.
My mom was an Army brat. And there was 5 kids in her family. So, I don't know how that was. She's never said anything that she lived poorly or wealthy. She didn't talk about her childhood much, actually. But yeah.
Dexcom G7 offers an easier way to manage diabetes without finger sticks. It is a simple CGM system that delivers real-time glucose numbers to your smartphone, your smartwatch, and it effortlessly allows you to see your glucose levels and where they're headed. My daughter is wearing a Dexcom G7 right now, and I can't recommend it enough. Whether you have commercial insurance, Medicare coverage, or no CGM coverage at all, Dexcom can help you. Go to my link, dexcom.com/juicebox, and look for that button that says Get a Free Benefits Check. That'll get you going with Dexcom. When you're there, check out the Dexcom Clarity app or the Follow. Did you know that people can follow your Dexcom? Up to 10 people can follow you. Right now, I'm following my daughter, but my wife is also following her. Her roommates at school are following her. So I guess Arden's being followed right now by 5 people who are concerned for her health and welfare. And you can do the same thing. School nurses, your neighbor, people in your family. Everyone can have access to that information if you want them to have it. Or if you're an adult and you don't want anyone to know, you don't have to share with anybody. It's completely up to you. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com. And when you use my link to learn about Dexcom, you're supporting the podcast. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Touched by Type 1. touchedbytype1.org. If you're looking for a great organization to support, someone who's supporting people with type 1 diabetes the way you would like, you're looking for Touched by Type 1. touchedbytype1.org, or find them on Facebook and Instagram. They're longtime sponsors of the podcast, and they're out there doing great things for people with type 1 diabetes. You're 40 now. For 15 minutes, you've explained to me what it was like growing up. If I said to you, how was your upbringing? You'd say...
I would say I had it better than many.
It's interesting. Okay. Do you know what the ACEs are? The Adverse Childhood Experience List?
No. Do I fit into that category? I feel like I probably would.
Oh my God. It feels like they were talking to you and then just wrote down what happened to you and made the list. They're risk factors for childhood development, right? So they're traumatic events or circumstances that could lead to, they're risk factors, let's say, for you not turning out the way you would hope. Mm-hmm. This is the list. Chronic stress. So ongoing stresses, whether they're family issues or financial stability, academic pressure, anything like that, that's, anxiety, depression based. I'm going to count growing up with drunks as stressful. Abuse or neglect. Were you physically, emotionally, or sexually abused?
No.
You don't think emotional abuse, being the child of alcoholics?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
The next one is parental substance abuse, growing up with parents who abuse drugs or alcohol. We've got that one. So we have stress. We're going to give you parent substance abuse. Maybe we'll skip over abuse and neglect, but, because you get the other one. Any domestic violence? You said yes, your mom would hold a knife on your dad?
Yep. Yep, lots of things.
Poverty you didn't have. Lack of parental involvement, like sufficient attention, guidance, and support, but like the kind you would want to give a child, not just like they were there.
Being there.
Yeah.
They were present. Their physical bodies were present.
Okay. Lack of parental involvement. We got inconsistencies in discipline. And you said yes, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Any mental health issues with your parents?
I know my dad struggled with depression as well as my mom. Mm-hmm. That's all I was told about.
Well, divorce or separation, you have that one. And then the last one is exposure to crime or violence.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. If you think about when it comes to crimes, my parents were the type that would go steal street signs.
Wait, as adults?
Hang them up oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we lived in this area that wasn't built up yet. Now it's huge in the East Valley here. But they would put these little, I remember specifically in this farmland area, I think they were going to be building, and they had these street signs of what the street names were going to be. Mm-hmm. And I remember, we had a 1972 station wagon. I don't know why I remember that so well.
Okay.
But I remember being in the back of that station wagon and my parents driving up next to this field and stealing all these street signs. And then we had them all lined up in the backyard on the porch. I think my dad still has a couple of them hanging up there, actually.
Well, modern mental health doctors believe that you had, and this is me making up a term, it's not from a list, no fucking chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Isn't it interesting is that the things that happen in your adult life, which we're going to talk about, are completely predictable by these things.
Yeah. And it's crazy that it's able to be predicted too.
Yeah. No. I mean, isn't it odd to hear somebody read a list to you and you go, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what is this? Where do I fall? What was this thing called?
Oh, if you want to look into it more, it's called
Yeah.
ACEs. It's adverse childhood experiences, or sometimes people call it risk factors for childhood development. But the term ACEs it should get you there on a Google search. So okay. Jesus. Natalie, do you have a good sense of humor about this, Natalie?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, good.
Me, I mean, you should hear the sense of humor me and my daughter have about everything, even the stuff that she's been through that I put her through.
I've put her, well, we'll get to that too.
Yeah.
15, you go to a party and you're like, you know what? I could start slow with a half a beer, or why don't we try acid? So we did that.
Yeah.
And Christ.
I know.
Was that the first half hour you were there? Can you look back now? Were you trying to escape like how you felt? Do you think you were just like getting involved in the family business? Like what was going on there?
I feel it was kind of like I am hanging out with like the popular people at school. And I remember being just really excited that I was a part of that group. Maybe
this
it was
is what they're doing that I'm in.
Like, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Let me just weed, probably yes, right?
I've maybe been like high a total of 10 times, if that, my whole life.
Interesting. Cocaine?
I've never liked it.
You didn't like
cocaine?
weed?
I've done a couple times.
Cocaine a couple times. How about heroin?
Never. I don't even like pain pills.
Gotcha. But meth? Yes, please.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's the winner.
How old?
Yeah.
First time?
First time I was 17.
Wow. Okay.
My sister introduced me to it.
Your sister was like, hey, you know what you would love? Meth.
So my sister had a worse upbringing, or she remembers the real upbringing that I choose to forget. And she started very young at getting in trouble. She I was a golden child. If there was a golden child between us, I was a golden child. So she was the bad one. She started doing meth at like 15. And she's 4 years older than me. So when I was 17, she was already moved out of the house and stuff.
Okay.
And I always kept my distance from her because, I mean, I was in school and, I was doing semi-okay in somewhat of where I was going in life compared to her.
Right.
But once my heart got broken by my high school sweetheart, everything changed for me.
No kidding.
Everything. And I went to go see my sister, and that was it.
So you go to your sister for some sisterly advice, and her advice was, let's do meth?
Yeah,
wow.
Basically.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I remember doing it for the very first time, and I'm like smoking this bowl, and I'm like, I remember thinking, like, what the hell is this? Because, like, when you drink, like, you feel it. Like, your eyesight feels it. Like, your whole body, like, you could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, with meth, I was like, okay, what is this? She's like, you haven't shut up for, like, 30 minutes. This is the effects. This is it. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I could be more outgoing. So I was a little bit shy, timid person until you got to know me.
Yeah.
I was very shy, actually.
That's some positive PR for meth, by the way. Be more outgoing. Have your teeth fall out. Do you have your teeth?
I do.
Congratulations.
I've also been blessed throughout my childhood of, despite my criminal background and my history, I've always landed, not always, but most of the time I've landed great jobs with big corporations that have good health care.
Really?
So I've been able to keep my teeth. Like right now I work.
My son's having trouble getting a job. Do you think I should tell him that on meth you had no trouble getting hired? How do you think he'll...
Well, okay, here's the thing. I didn't work when I was on meth. Okay. I did a little bit. But most of my adulthood I've been in recovery.
I see.
It's been an on and off thing. Mostly in recovery most of my adulthood.
So how long did the meth using go on for? And at what point do you try to like get cleaned up?
So from the time but like 17, stayed on it, pretty consistent. I never got in trouble, anything. It was just, if it was around, it was around. And usually my sister's boyfriend was the drug dealer, and she was with him for like 15 years.
Well, he's got a good job.
So it was, yeah, it worked for a minute, right? Until it didn't. So it was always free to me. When I got pregnant is when like life started like flipping the switch. And during I didn't really explain this for other people. It makes sense to other people. I was 19 when I got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I had sex with, my daughter's wonderful dad. I say that very sarcastically. I mean, he's doing well now, but at the time, not a good choice. I got pregnant after having sex with him one time. That same night that we had sex, which was Christmas morning, we got raided by the feds for him because I picked a winner.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
Wait, this wasn't the first time was this the first time you had sex with him?
Yep.
Oh my.
Yep. Christmas morning, the one and only time we had sex, and then the feds came and raided us for him.
Merry Christmas. Here's a baby.
Yeah.
Get dressed.
Yeah. And
because Uncle Sam's coming.
I ignored it too.
Wait.
I ignored that pregnancy for almost 5 months.
You knew you were pregnant? You tried to pretend you weren't?
Well, here's the thing. Apparently, you have to read the directions when you take a pregnancy test. So you're supposed to wait until you have a missed period. But when you're high all the time, you don't know how long it's been since you had a period.
Mm-hmm.
So I took 2 pregnancy tests, and it says I wasn't pregnant. So I was like, okay, like I'm not pregnant. And then when I started couldn't put my pants on anymore, I finally was like, okay, I need to go see a doctor, and I was pregnant.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I was.
Were you doing
high.
meth that time? Yeah. Go ahead. Tell me.
Yes, I was totally getting high the whole time until I was about 5 months.
Did that have any effects on the baby?
You'll have to ask her. I mean, she came out fine. She came out completely wonderful, beautiful, 7 pounds. Other than that, I mean.
Does she know this? Like, this is something she's aware of?
Yes.
Explain to me the day you said to your daughter, right?
Yeah.
Hey, honey, I have to tell you something. I used meth for the first 5 months of your pregnancy.
So I don't really know how the topic started. I used to bring her, or even now she'll come with me every now and then to, like AA meetings and NA meetings,
Mm-hmm.
And topics would get brought up. I don't know if I remember that conversation actually having with her, or if it was even my sister did drugs during her first pregnancy. And I don't even remember how the conversation started between me and her. I was like, that I was high during the first part of my pregnancy with you. I remember saying that and us having a conversation. But I don't remember how the topic got brought up in the first place.
Okay. How many kids do you have?
Just one.
One.
That's the one.
Just this lucky baby that came out after Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, jeez.
Yeah.
Was that by the way, was that your Christmas present?
I guess so.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, did you get a bracelet too or something? It's terrible. Jesus. My God. All right. Hold on a second.
It's not like we were in love. I feel very fortunate because like her dad, he's actually been on the news telling his story. He's kind of a cool dude to talk to, but he's been in and out of prison, since he was 20, and he's 10 years older than me. When I met him, I was about 19, and he had just gotten out of doing 10 years in prison. And so I knew he was on the run. And then when the feds came and raided us, he did like another 6 years, got out for like maybe a couple months, went back. He's been gone. He was gone consistently until she was about 14 or 15. So I feel in a way very blessed that like he wasn't around. He didn't break my heart. He knew from day one, I never said I was going to be with him. I was like, dude, I'm done. Bye.
Yeah.
Like we've had a friendship relationship and, because of our daughter.
Listen, you weren't a virgin on this day, correct?
Oh, no.
No.
God, no.
You're like, oh, no, God, no. Did you hear the story about my grandmother?
Yeah. Yeah.
What I meant is that what I was trying to get to was a lot of your existence just like go somewhere, get high, have sex.
Yes.
Okay. And
yeah.
I got you. How are you involved in these many things that I know for myself, I'd go, I have to leave. Like, I don't want to be here. Like if I went to a party when I was 15 and somebody was doing acid, I'd be like, oh, I made a mistake. And then I would have went home. But what draws you in over and over again?
Oh.
Yeah. What doesn't stop you?
I think maybe which is super controversial for a lot of people of being able to stop. I think my addiction kicked in. You know what I mean? There comes a point where I don't know if there's any medical terminology, but it's like it flips a switch in your brain and it becomes the obsession.
Okay.
You know, it's not especially with meth, it's not a physical obsession. It is a mental obsession. It's like that, what is it, the dopamine or the serotonin that kicks in. And it's just like, you have to have more. I can't even explain.
Not like the way people like talk about heroin, for example. Like it's not like you think it's not a physical addiction for you?
No, I mean, it would be physical as in you need more to stay awake and to like move and stuff, but you don't get physically ill off of it. You know, like the worst that's going to happen when you come off of meth is you're going to sleep. You might have a crazy outburst because you're so emotional. You're going to cry and you're going to eat a ton.
Okay. Well, ChatGPT believes that it is physically addictive. It says someone uses meth, it triggers the release of large amounts of dopamine in the brain, which creates intense feelings of pleasure and euphoria. Over time, the brain's chemistry can change, leading to tolerance, needing more of the drug to get the same effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's your experience with it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Wow. How old were you when you were diagnosed with type 1?
I was about 17.
Around 17.
Almost 18.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I didn't start taking care of myself until I was pregnant, though.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't remember at all. I was dizzy by the whole thing. Are you taking care of your diabetes at all during that time? You have to be taking basal insulin at least, right?
I would every now and then when I remembered.
Okay.
It was like, and fun story is that one of my best like using buddies was diabetic, and she was a type 1 diabetic since she was like 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when I'd see her take her insulin, I was like, oh, I should probably check my blood sugar and see what mine's at, as we're eating a pack of Skittles and drinking, a Code Red Mountain Dew, because that's what we love to do.
What a great idea. I should take my insulin. So, were you going to the doctor?
No. So I got kicked off of my parents' health insurance when I was out of school because, that's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And so like I was on state assistance. I made sure I stayed on government like healthcare for so many years. Mm-hmm. Like intentionally made sure I didn't make enough money to make sure that my diabetes was taken care of.
Yeah.
So many years.
It's so sad. I mean, it just...
It is.
Well, not just the whole thing.
It really is.
You get diagnosed when you're 17. There's no one there there's no one there to be a parent. You know what I mean? And to learn about this thing for you and try to help you navigate it. You're high now, so you're not even paying attention to it. They don't, you're on meth. Yeah. They got to know you're using meth, right?
I'm sure they knew. Not once did anybody ever bring it up to me, but I'm sure they knew.
No one ever looked at you and went, hey, Natalie, you okay? You look high.
Yeah. No, never. And, I was also never a person that got extra skinny or lost a bunch of weight. If anything, I was like at the weight I probably should have been, according to doctors. I didn't like pick my face. I didn't, I have my teeth. I didn't fit the description of a tweaker at all. So.
Jesus, it's so much to think about. You know what I mean? Like there's so many people who are supposed to be supporting each other, but they're also lost in their own problem that how could they possibly?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I get it.
And during that early time, my mom was actually in recovery. And she'd keep her distance. She'd let me come to her. Of course, I would go to her when, like, she's again, Mom, I need money. Mom, I need this. Mom, I need that. And then when it was like, Mom, I'm pregnant. Like, if it wasn't for my mom, my daughter totally would have and should have been taken away from me for sure. For sure.
Because you would have done such a poor job or because she was
Absolutely.
able. Okay.
Yeah. To be completely transparent with it, if I wasn't so far along, I would have had an abortion for sure. Oh. I never wanted to be a mom, ever.
It's because you found out at 5 months you couldn't do it.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. You would have had an abortion, but you didn't know for 5 months. You're so high you didn't know for 5 months, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. And then you find out you don't know what to do, so you go to your mom.
Yeah.
What does she do for you?
She hugged me and she's like, you don't have to do this alone. I'll do it with you. I remember that. And we cried. And she immediately went and found out a part. Because at the time she was running a halfway house, a recovery house for women. So she put her whole life like on hold for me. She went and got us our own place that we stayed in for a few years together. She helped me raise my daughter in the beginning for sure.
What was that like? Was she any good at that?
Yeah. My mom. So another crazy part about my mom.
Is she clean by then?
Yes. Yes.
How does she?
Like with my mom, when she's great, she's great. Like she is like this person that you like she'll walk into a room and people are in awe of her because her aura was so good.
Mm.
But like when she's bad, everyone is just like, get away from me. Like
Train wreck.
it's just crazy the night and day.
Okay.
Now she also, all my growing up, and from the time like I was born until the time I was 11, my mom was an in-home daycare provider. And she had
Sorry, hold on a second.
I know. She had a wait list because people in the neighborhood wanted her to be like watch their kids. She used to have a total of sometimes 16 kids at our home during the day.
Is there any chance this was a front for a drug dealing thing? Were they dropping?
I don't know.
Were they dropping the
that
kids
would have
off?
been genius.
Yeah.
Maybe
picking up drugs
maybe.
when they dropped off the kids.
The new Netflix series should start on that one.
My God. Jesus. Hey, so you know this is screwed up, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. You completely were. Okay. So, all right. You have your daughter. When do you get locked up? What happens there?
I have my daughter. She is about, I think it was around 2000. I don't remember the years. So my daughter was young. I eventually had gotten clean because I had gotten in trouble. I got my first felony. So I went to rehab and I stayed clean. I don't even want to say I was in recovery because I just stayed abstinent for about 5 years.
What was the felony?
Well, I had theft as means of transportation. And then I had theft of a credit card, forgery with a written instrument, and identity theft.
What, forgery with a what?
A written instrument.
Okay.
It's because I signed using one of the digital things.
Okay. Oh, after you stole the credit card.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We went to Macy's.
Whose card? Just a person's?
Don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got it. I have to ask you, what did you buy at Macy's?
Oh my God. A mixer. Like one of those, those stand-up mixers?
Get out of here. Hold on a second.
That I had no idea what to do with, but I knew the dope man would find it valuable. You know what I mean?
You bought the mixer to sell the mixer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It just sounds so ridiculous. You're like, I just thought I'd get into making cookies, Scott. Like,
Yeah.
I was all charged up on meth and I had this credit card and I was like, oh my God, we should try baking.
Yeah.
but you were.
That sounds normal, actually. But yeah.
You're describing Thursday. It's so crazy. It is crazy and it's sad and happening to way more people than somebody would want to believe.
Yeah.
What leads you to get clean?
I was put on probation. Then my probation officer was like, hey, this is your choice. You are not pissing clean anymore or at all, or you're diluting, like all these issues. You're either going to show up to this rehab or you're going to jail. Like these are your choices.
Okay.
And so I went and I showed up at that rehab. And at the time, I had been with somebody who we used drugs with, and he had gotten clean on his own. And he was like literally just waiting for my time to come for me to get clean. And so he was already in recovery, doing well. And as soon as I got clean, we immediately got back together. We stayed together for a long time and I actually was engaged to him at one point.
But you did go to jail. Is that correct at one point?
I did. That comes after this felony.
Oh, after you got clean. Sorry.
Yes. Yes. I got clean.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw any jail time for those charges.
Right.
Because it was like my first offense, probation.
Yeah.
Finished that, completed. After my fiance and I broke up, I went on the bender of drinking alcohol. That's when I was like at my worst and probably the most like alcoholic me I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite thing to do was drink alcohol, drive a car, and listen to music. And I used to do all those things together when I didn't have my daughter around me. So I got a DUI. And in Arizona at that time, I'm not sure how they are now, but the laws were hard, super hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Tent City came into place. It was my first DUI, my first and only DUI offense. And I blew, I think a 0.15, but my blood came back at 0.255. So of course they went with a higher charge. So I had a super extreme DUI.
Mm-hmm.
They let me do work release, which was crazy. So I did work release for 15 days. And then after work release, I was on house arrest for 45 days and I had a breathalyzer in my house. So every time I'd come near like the house or entering back into the house, I'd have to go blow into this machine. And when I was on that house arrest is when I picked up drugs again because I couldn't drink. The next option would be drugs.
Mm-hmm. During all this, there's no point your brain there's no point. I understand addiction and the idea there, but there's no point where you just like think like, this isn't going well. Like my life is not going well. Or do you think it is?
No, I absolutely know it's not going well.
Okay. But you can't stop long enough to like, did you have the opportunity for a change? Were you without opportunity as well?
My aunt so I left my fiance. I had gotten my own place. Of course, I ended up losing that place because the DUI. And then at that exact same time, like literally like 2 weeks after I got that DUI, I got laid off from my job.
Mm-hmm.
That was around 2008. So I remember it was like the recession type era. And I went to go live with my aunt. My daughter and I went to go live with my aunt, who also have both her and my uncle both have like long-term, like 20 plus years of sobriety.
Okay.
So I was like, perfect. This is where I need to go. But it didn't help. It didn't work. All I did was waste my time. I'm getting high during that time.
Jesus Christ. Oh God. It's horrifying. Okay. How do you end up in jail eventually?
Then eventually, because of the guy I was dating, I'm not even sure. Stuff started getting too real. We took off to Texas because, of course, that was supposed to be a new change. That if I just get out of Arizona, I'll be fine.
You know what the problem is? It's Arizona, not me. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. It's not me.
Right. If I can get out of here, I'll be okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And so my daughter's dad's family lived in Texas. And they said, hey, we'll put you on a train and you come move out here. So within 7 days, I packed my daughter, my current boyfriend, and myself. And we moved out to this little tiny town with like a population of like 5,000 people in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Cool trip, awful experience. When I came back from Texas, I had a warrant out for my arrest for not paying my fines.
Okay.
So I think it was like a bench warrant or something. That's what got me placed in jail.
What went wrong that we're going to relocate and everything's going to be a great plan? Where did that go wrong?
I immediately put us into another dysfunctional family. His whole family is also alcoholic. And his sister was so messed up on pills. Like it was just like,
Jesus,
just me taking a step and nothing changed. It just happened to be with a new family.
Natalie, do you listen to the podcast?
I do.
Do I sound like square to you when I'm talking or how do I come off? Like I'm being like really serious now. I'm not making this about me. I'm just trying to understand, like I'm hearing your life and I'm like, what in the hell is happening? Like when you hear mine, what do you think?
Normal, happy, stable.
Is it like, I wish I had that? Like, because I get notes from people sometimes who are like, Arden's so lucky to have a dad who blah, blah, and a mom who, and I think all the time, like, how is that lucky? Isn't that the minimum I should expect from my parents?
Oh, absolutely.
But in most people's lives, it's lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean.
Natalie, listen to your list for a second. Your grandmother, your mom, your dad, your sister, the guy you met who rolled over on you and got you pregnant.
Yeah.
His dad, your sister, everybody you walk into, the guy over here, like you never once bump into somebody who's like, oh my God, Natalie, you're so lovely. You should be in the spelling bee with me. And you go, oh my God, the spelling bee, that'd be wonderful. Nothing like that ever happens to you, which indicates that you're so surrounded by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
I'm a firm believer of also like the laws of attraction. We attract people like us. Like quote unquote, like normal people don't hang out with drug addicts.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a fair statement for you. Like, like,
you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be appealing to like if me and you were to cross paths on the street, even having a conversation, that's probably not ever going to go any further than that conversation because we just have two different lifestyles.
I could think you're lovely, have a great time talking to you, but you think there's some level where I would go, it seems like maybe trouble and no thank you. But would you see me and think like, oh my God, stable, like how do I make this happen? Or do you think, no, I got to go find a drug addict because that's how I fit? See what I'm saying?
the search was always to find somebody better and more stable than me, for sure.
Literally just couldn't identify anybody and bring them into your life, into your sphere.
Yeah, I mean, who would want to deal with this hot mess? You know what I mean? Nobody wants. I mean,
I'm sure you're
people
lovely.
don't want to be Captain Save-A-Ho. You know what I mean?
Christ.
They'd be like, "That's a mess." Sorry.
You know what's funny is later I will get like someone's going to write a note that say I was like insensitive to you or I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. They'll skip right over the part where you said Captain Save-A-Ho talking about yourself, by the way. They'll just be like, no one will bring that up when they're yelling at me for doing this wrong later. I love my job. It's ridiculous. Okay. Jesus Christ. Texas doesn't work. I have a hard time keeping up with this. Texas doesn't work.
I know.
You head back home. You get home to find out there's a warrant for you and they arrest you.
Correct.
How do they find you though? Like, how do they know you're back?
I was at a bus stop.
Go ahead.
That boyfriend that came to Texas with me, I was at a bus stop and I think we were yelling at each other and a cop happened to see it.
And
he just wanted to stop and say, "Is everybody okay?"
Yeah. Let me see some ID. And then he calls the guy and the guy goes, "Yo, you got one."
Yeah, basically.
You there with your baby or your daughter?
No, the whole situation, I didn't bring my daughter necessarily through all my drug use because it goes on and off, on and off, on and off.
Mm-hmm.
From the time my daughter, when we got back to Texas, of course, I had to be like, "Dad, I need help. Get me, save me." And his stipulation was either you live here or your daughter lives here. You're both not living here. It's weird. My dad's weird. That's a whole nother thing.
Trust me. Hey, Natalie, you're all, give yourself some credit. You're all weird. Don't worry about it.
I know.
I'm weird too, but in a different way. But go ahead.
My sister had taken my daughter while I went to my dad's.
Okay.
So, which my daughter probably has a terrific story for you and her growing up because that's a whole.
When you put her with the lady who gave you meth for the first time for a while?
Yes. Yeah. See, my sister, when we got in trouble for, that mixer that I bought at Macy's, my sister went to prison for that.
Get out of here.
She didn't get her life together. Yes. I think she did 2 years. And when she got out of prison, she's completely changed her life. Like she's had her hiccups here and there, but her life.
You're like she completely changed her life, except for that 6 months where she muled. And like they,
well,
oh God,
exactly. I mean, let's just say she went. Can't even explain it because her situation was bad because she got into an abusive relationship.
Sorry.
But other than that, like as far as the drugs and stuff like that, she cleaned her life up from that part. Mm-hmm. Now it's just like the dysfunction that happens behind closed doors, or it was until she got out of that. But at the time, I didn't.
All right, so they pick you up at the bus. By the way, I've never even been to a bit. This is going to sound very like, I don't actually, is this bougie? I don't know if I've ever been to a bus stop.
I felt the same way. I never even, so at that time, I'm 26.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back from Texas, that was the first time I ever had to ride a bus too. I didn't even know what to do.
Okay.
I was like, what? Like I had asked, I was like, where do I put this money? Like,
you're there.
Like you don't put money in here. You need to go across the street and buy a bus ticket. I'm like, Oh, okay.
Even the arguing in public, Natalie, like it wouldn't occur to me to do that. And if I started to, like, if I was with somebody and we were getting loud, somebody would be like, hey, let's, we're in public. Like, let's stop. Like, I know that for sure. It's just really interesting. So, yes. Okay. What kind of jail do you do?
Normal.
That's the normal.
So yeah, that's how normal people would respond.
We're in public. We probably shouldn't be screaming at each other. I live my life under very basic rules. Like, I don't do anything that would draw the cops' attention. That's my rule. Like, don't get arrested. I don't want to get arrested. I don't like I have very simple ideas about how to live a happy life. That's at the top of my list, honestly.
Yeah.
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 My brother one time, he's great now, but he was like a really like troubled little kid. Like, and my parents were divorced and like, I get why. Right. And I used to tell him like, because I was young, I was like, look, just don't do anything that if a cop knew about it, they'd be upset about. Like, that's how when I was 13, that's how I talked to my little brother, because it was like the clearest thing I could think of to help him. But how long do you go to jail for though?
So I ended up, when I went into jail, they gave me no time served, meaning my house arrest didn't count, and the 15 days of work release didn't count. So I did 3 months.
You owed the whole 3 months. Okay. And are you
Correct.
taking care of your diabetes at that point?
Better. I would at least give myself the long acting, and then I gave myself short acting based on if I knew what I was going to eat. I think I maybe check my blood sugar once every few days.
Right. So for people who take, care of their health, their diabetes health, can you describe to them how much of a week did you think about diabetes? Like I'm trying to show that, you know what I mean?
0.
Not at all.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
The idea that you'd be hurting your health ever pop into your head?
No. But you also have to think at this time, I was on state assistance. I saw only a primary care doctor, and I, of course, was given only the cheapest insulin. And they would do my A1C. Never once did they be like, okay, so you're at 11. You should probably bring that down a little bit.
Did you have any understanding of what any of that meant or what the repercussions were? No.
I mean, I knew a little bit just based on what my mom has said. I never knew based on experience, because my mom didn't have any complications until her last year of death when she lost her legs. I mean, did
you say her legs? Her legs?
Yeah. Middle of COVID.
How old was she when she passed?
She was 67.
Okay. Are you okay? Now?
I am. I'm good now. I've been on Omnipod now since I saw my first very endocrinologist at 35.
Really? 35?
Yeah. 35 years old.
Jeez.
So,
you're the first person I've ever spoken to when I asked how old they were when they were diagnosed. You're like, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't. I've never been hospitalized for my diabetes, whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know pumps were a thing that helped. I thought you had to buy them out of pocket. I didn't even know until my doctor was like, hey, let's get you on a pump. I'm like, I can do that? And they're like, yeah, your insurance will cover it. I was like, oh, I have that kind of insurance? I didn't even know.
I got fancy lady insurance.
I know my work gives me free something, but I didn't know it was this much free.
Okay. So Natalie, let's stop for a second. When's the last time you were high? What age?
37.
All right. 3 years ago.
Yep.
And in the last 3 years, you've been taking very good care of yourself.
Yes. I've lost 65 pounds. My A1C is 6.2, which is the lowest it's ever been for me.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. I also just got married a month ago.
Congratulations.
Life is good for me now. It took a while.
Is it fair to say, we have a lot of life left, but is it fair to say that once you had clarity away from drugs and drinking, that it was easier to take care of yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I still don't. I hate to say this. I hate being defined saying, "Oh, I'm diabetic." I really don't like. Just I don't like saying I'm an addict. I feel like it puts a label on me, and I feel kind of just hey, I have this thing that I can share my experience with you, and hopefully it'll help somebody else out. I try not to let even my diabetes run my life, but it does. It absolutely does now because I care now. And since, watching my mom die, it kind of put this thing just clicked in my head. And it was okay, so let's say the magic number for me, let's just say in my family history is living 30 or how old was she? She was 17 years or longer than that. I don't even know how to do math. 27
years. Yeah.
27 years of her having diabetes. What if I only have 27 years to live with diabetes? I'm already out of almost 20 of those.
Oh.
I only got a few years left. And that's what clicked it on for me. I was I cannot do to my daughter what my mother did to me. I can't do it.
You never once thought, I'm using meth. What if I don't have a lot of time left? People who use meth don't live very long. It was this. You got clarity from the drugs, clarity from drinking, saw your mom pass away, and still said to yourself, I might not have a lot of time left. I don't want my daughter to feel the way I feel right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, people are confusing.
I had gotten COVID and I was pissed off that it didn't kill me.
Really?
And that's when I got clean. Yeah. I woke up one day and I literally took the bag of drugs that we had just gotten that we couldn't do because we were so freaking sick. I jumped down the toilet and I was like, I was done. I was like, I'm done.
People say COVID was bad, but it it stopped you from doing
I'm
meth.
done. Yeah. I was pissed. I tried it a couple times, just couldn't.
You literally woke up and you thought, Jesus Christ, am I still alive?
Yes.
I guess I ought to pull this together then.
Yeah.
God damn, that's ridiculous. Like, I don't mean ridiculous. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
like that's what it took.
Yeah, it's
like,
ridiculous that that's what happened, where you're like, oh, okay, I'm good now. I'll stop.
Yeah.
Jesus. Huh. Walking down the street, I pass 50 people. Yeah. How many of them are doing meth and I'm not aware of it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, in a way, probably a lot of people. Think about all the people that abuse Adderall. It's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
You could live a double life with it. You really could. Like when I was doing meth in my 30s, like most recently before I got clean, like nobody would have known.
That's fascinating.
I lived a double life. I kept my corporate job. I had a side business doing Turo. I mean, I would flip cars. I'm buying and selling. Like I've
got two streams of income over here, Scott. I got one that pays the bills and one pays for the meth. Yeah. Well, to pay for the meth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How old's your daughter now?
She's going to be 21 in a couple weeks.
All right. Has she used, is she an alcoholic, anything like that? Or did she like run the complete opposite direction of you?
So far from what I know of, she ran the complete opposite direction. However, I see a lot of the same behaviors where that switch could flip on her. Like it could totally click in at any time for her. But I've never had to deal with her. Like,
what does that mean?
Or anything like that. Like she's never like been in trouble for it. Well, she's always kept a job. She was in school. Like she was a decent person, a human being so far.
If I described, all right, so look, this is the less fun part of my job. You're very much like you described your mom, like great when they're great, problem when I'm a problem. Mm-hmm. And if I get your daughter over here and I read that ACEs list to her, how many of those things do you think she's going to say, yeah, I grew up with that stuff?
Absolutely. At 100%, all of them. However, the little flip with that is that while my sister had my daughter, when nobody knew there was all that physical abuse going on in that household, that's what most of her childhood is going to be like. The only reason, like my daughter, when I let my sister take care of my daughter, because I thought she was going to be in a better situation, my daughter was told that me and her dad didn't want her. I was told that she didn't want to come home and live with me. So when I found out that there was actual physical abuse or just abuse in general going on in that house, she didn't have a choice anymore. And I swiped her up and she came to live with me. She didn't have a choice.
So your sister decided to tell you one thing while telling your daughter another thing because she thought that your daughter was better off with her. And that was making you think that your daughter didn't want to be with you. But then you found out that there was abuse between your sister and her spouse, and then you used that to extract your daughter.
Correct. Yeah. So my daughter has probably been more witness to the kind of abuse that you see on like Lifetime TV.
Right.
You know, like the men abusing the wife and the children than I ever did growing up. You know what I mean? I witnessed the abuse happening, which is when my mom was like drunk and crazy and wild. You know what I mean? It was totally different kind of abuse. Like this man was the kind of abuse that, and he's a man that didn't drink or do drugs. Like he's just a mad, angry person type of abuse.
Did he abuse your daughter? Like hit her?
Little bits have come out of some of the things he's done. As time goes on, she's gotten more open about what's gotten on in that household. I don't think he physically abused her. He almost had a couple times. Okay. And my sister would jump in.
If you were your daughter, what would you want from you?
I was my daughter.
What would you want from you? Like you? Stay
the way I am now.
Okay.
I would hope so anyways.
You think you can do that?
I do think I can do that. You know, there's no 100% guarantees, but I've also been given the tools of, you know, like AA, sponsorship, therapy, you know, keeping a job, you know, doing things like with my fitness. You know, I decided to become a personal trainer on the side. You know, like constantly improving myself is only going to keep me like doing better.
Yeah. Do you have any other autoimmune issues? Do you have Hashimoto's or anything like that?
I do. I do.
I thought you did. Your mom have it too?
You want to get into medical history? Oh my gosh. My mom, she has the diabetes. She just had an underactive thyroid. My dad actually had thyroid cancer when he was 15 and had his thyroid removed. And my sister had Hashimoto's, and then she also got thyroid cancer. And then she also has a heart condition and MS.
Do you guys manage the thyroid well? I mean, no,
they give
right?
me pills. I mean,
do you do the blood work every 6 months and stuff like that?
I do. I feel like, I mean, if you really want to get into like the healthcare part of it, I really think that there could be more done. I do watch what I eat because I do notice that like what I eat, not just the diabetes, I get inflamed. And I learned recently about flare-ups and Hashimoto's. Like I didn't even know that was a thing.
Like your TSH maybe spikes, goes up higher, and
Yep.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, you're having a flare-up." I'm like, "What does that mean? What is this? I didn't even know."
Do you keep your TSH? Is there a number you keep it at, or do they just tell you it's in range?
They just tell me it's in range. I don't actually know what my numbers are.
Yeah, we would like to see it under 2. But the reason I bring it up is because the inflammation from the autoimmune in general, right? And then a thyroid, anxiety, other, I mean, you can look through everything that kind of comes with Hashimoto's when it's unregulated. Some of the things you described could be related to that. I mean, people who have autoimmune issues are now finding like a lot of value with GLP medications, right? But GLP medications at the same time are also being talked about reducing people's other addictions. And you just kind of like start wondering about like what's all in the soup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would start by making sure your thyroid, like I'm trying to think of ways to give yourself like long-term success so you can be the person you want to be and your daughter gets the mom she, deserves and all that stuff. Like I would talk to your doctor and say, look, I want to know what my TSH is. And if it's under like 2.1, or if it's over 2.1, I'd like to maybe ramp up my medication a little bit to bring it under to see if I have any alleviation of symptoms, if I have more mental clarity, energy, like all these little things that impact people,
Yeah.
Jeez. What made you want to come on the podcast?
Well, first it was, hey, that's cool. And then like I listened to other people's stories and I was like, yeah, I can relate. Like all those After Dark ones I'm totally obsessed with because those are my people. You know what I mean? Yeah. I get them. Also, I think a real part of me saying this person who I have become is also about sharing my story.
Okay.
And the way I felt I could relate to other people, hopefully somebody else can relate to me. And there's so many people on that Facebook group. I mean, it'll just reach out more friendships.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually how it started, is because somebody had made a comment about having to go to jail and being a diabetic. And I was like, hey, let me tell you what it was like. They made sure I stayed alive.
Yeah. I was going to say, were you actually taking care of yourself? And like, what was that 3 months like with diabetes?
So when I was in Tent City, it was because everybody got taken into like the doctor, the healthcare area twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. So that's when I would go. So they would test my blood sugar. They gave me the long acting insulin once a day. And then they would give me the short acting based on what my blood sugar is. But before, they would test your blood sugar once. Then they made you drink a liter of water, wait 15 minutes, and then they test you again. And then they would dose your insulin based on that.
Yeah, they kept you alive.
They kept us alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like the middle of summer in Arizona. And it was just
warm.
I mean, that was the least of yeah.
Wait, the condos you're in aren't air conditioned? What's going on?
So Tent City is literally army tents.
Yeah.
You sleep outside.
Yeah, tell people about it, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've taken it down now, which I guess is good. I don't know. But you literally, it's like a dirt rock area. And I think there might have been like 8 tents in this chain link fence that I was in. Mm-hmm. And then under each tent, and they're the big army type tents that roll up on the sides and everything.
Yeah.
There's one big giant fan that pushes air through one side to the other. And I think I want to say there might have been 12 bunks. I could be wrong on that number per tent. Yeah, I want to say there's about 12. There might have been less than that per tent. And it was considered like people who went to tent. I had to fight with a sergeant to get out to Tent City because you get less time. You'll get like 2-for-1s just for being out there, and you get to work.
If you're willing to be incarcerated in the tent, it shortens your time because it extra sucks.
Yes, and because you get put to work. You run food for inside the jail. you could be put on the chain gang. You get to work with the animals. But I wasn't allowed to do any of that stuff because of my diabetes. So I got to rake rocks, like literally. I just raked rocks.
You raked rocks.
That's it. I literally took a rake, walked up and down, which was usually punishment. Like if you had your shirt untucked, you had to rake the rocks. But that's what I did to keep myself busy. I just raked the rocks.
That was your day.
That was my day.
What goes through your head? What do you think about with all that free time?
How good I felt being clean.
Really?
Like clarity. I could go to sleep and sleep well. I could take a nap whenever I wanted. It was hot, but I made me sleep. I had so much anxiety when I had to go home because I knew it would just start up again. I knew it.
What would start up again?
My using.
Okay. Even though
I knew it.
So you were better off raking rocks in Tent City than you were going to be when you got home.
Yeah, it was kind of like Girl Scout camp. Like, it's not like, it sounds stupid, but I mean, you got a lot of people in there that were like, it was a lot of DUIs. So, you had your nurses, you had teachers, you had your moms. It wasn't like hardcore criminals. You know what I mean? It was people who made mistakes and that have lives on the outside.
Mm.
You could hear about other people's lives. I don't know, you met some cool people. Of course, there were some that were, I don't know. You could tell which ones were the tweakers, but I don't fit in with those because I had this, like, I didn't fit in with what they looked like or even how they acted. So I wasn't a tweaker-like person, even though I did it.
So interesting.
I know. It is weird.
Is the thought, I have anxiety because I know I'm going to go home and do drugs again, or are you planning on doing them? Like, are you standing there going, oh my God, I feel great, but I know when I leave here, this is what I'm going to do. Like, did it feel like a decision you were making or a thing that was going to happen to you?
I didn't get out. Of course, I didn't get out thinking, oh, I can't wait to go use drugs. I'm just going to go use drugs, call everybody that I used to hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just more of like that depression of knowing I was like stuck and I didn't know how to get out of it. At that time in my early 20s or mid 20s, I didn't know how to keep a job at all. Like, my anxiety was so off the charts. I didn't even know how to talk to people. Like, if people used to come up and talk to me, like, I would cry. Like, I used to not even be able to get gas in my car without somebody being with me because I was so scared all the time. And that definitely stems from my childhood, for sure.
Why so?
I don't know. I was just always so scared. Like, even in school, if a teacher would call on me, like, it would take everything in me to not shake and cry because I just didn't want to talk. It was crazy.
So I think the idea is if you grow up around alcoholism, there's this feeling that something's always about to like happen. And you kind of can't tell when it's going to happen.
Yeah. You're like in this constant fight or flight mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember going to sleep as a child. It was like that.
You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, when's this going to happen? Like, and then so if I stay quiet, maybe it won't happen. Or if I'm quiet, maybe they won't see me when it's happening.
I think it's more of like they won't see me.
Okay. So once those people go batshit crazy, if I'm not on the radar, maybe I get through this unscathed.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Right. Oh, and that sticks with you as an adult.
For sure. Even now, I'm like, okay, like, I don't know, just like everybody around me and like what I do, it'd be like, okay, I'm just going to get a little bit further in my seat, just sit here, do my time, go home. As long as nobody knows what I'm doing, we're good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, no news is good news.
How does it work at work, though? When you're at like a corporate job, like you don't have those feelings there?
I don't anymore. I've been promoted 3 times already, like since this job. Like, what I am doing is being seen and I'm being heard. And it's kind of crazy how much I've come out of my skin. But I also think that like how much like I have grown, like even talking to you, I would have never even been willing to do this years ago. But with me, like I lived in a halfway house mostly on for about 4 years. I stayed there because it was comfortable. And in that return, I had to get a job and I had to learn how to like function in life. Yeah. And that's what made me all of a sudden grow up. I didn't become an adult until my late 20s. I still feel like I'm probably maybe like 30, 31. I'm probably at the same, like, like financially, I'm probably the same as somebody in their early 30s.
Okay. I was just looking here while you were talking. Growing up with alcoholic parents have significant lasting effects on a child's development. Some ways are you can have emotional and physical effects like increased anxiety or stress, depression, low self-esteem. We didn't talk about your self-esteem. Is it something that's been better over recently, or has it always been okay?
I'm sure I've always had really low self-esteem. I kind of feel, especially younger, I definitely did. And since I've been an adult, actually, since I've been to jail, like when it comes to my physical appearance, when I went to jail, if you want to feel good about yourself, go take a shower with 50 other women. You realize that everybody has beautiful bodies, like in their own way. Or you're like, holy crap, my body looks great compared to hers. And I know that's awful to say, but like, it's true.
Jail showers made you feel good about yourself?
Absolutely.
All right.
I was like, wow, I don't have any stretch marks. I've had a kid. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Like, oh, I got a little pooch. Like, you know what I mean? When you compare yourself, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing it.
And nobody cares either, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you think about self-esteem, sometimes, like when it comes to like, even like with me applying for jobs and these corporate jobs that I've worked for, and I work for this big international company, and it's like, do you tell them about your past? Because it's going to come up in a background check. Like, how honest do you want to be, or how honest do you need to? So far, I've been completely honest.
Have you really? And how's that gone? Because meth is a thing I would think would just turn people right off.
Most people have been very supportive, like, wow, I would never guess. That is crazy. I want to hear a story. You know, I'm not always willing to tell them a story unless they actually ask something specific. I do know my current boss right now comes from law enforcement. And so for her to immediately flip the switch of always, which I knew by the conversation I had with her, she was very judgy of people with criminal backgrounds, right? Her knowing me has completely changed that, you know? So
having these conversations has helped me a lot too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always sort of just looking for like, how did that happen? Or like, you didn't ever think this way or that? Like, why not? I wonder. Like, not like, why didn't you? But like, I wonder why you didn't. And, you know, like, it's a different way of thinking about it. By the way, behavioral and social effects, difficulty with relationships. Children of alcoholics struggle to trust, and they find it challenging to form healthy, stable relationships. You, of course, are at an increased risk of substance abuse yourself, having behavioral issues, having academic struggles, which I think didn't really have an opportunity to happen to you because you were doing well right up until you weren't at school. But, you know, there's your point. Once it happens, you're in trouble. Physical health, neglect, developmental delays, chronic stress, and poor living conditions can lead to delays in physical and emotional development. Long term, some children of alcoholics may develop a strong drive to overachieve or to be perfect and attempt to gain approval or avoid the chaos associated with their parents' addiction. Many children of alcoholics caretaker role, feeling responsible for their parents' well-being, which can eventually lead to burnout and resentment. That's not going to it sounds like that might have happened to your sister, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but increased resilience. Despite the challenges, some children develop strong coping mechanisms and resilience that they may become highly independent, resourceful, and empathetic, though these traits often come at a cost of their own emotional well-being. Sound like you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, how about that? Well, don't make a baby if you're drinking a lot. Because
no more babies for me.
Not you. I'm talking to everybody else.
Yeah, okay.
You're 25 right now and you're like, I just drink through the weekend. Now's not the time to start a family, maybe, because 40 years from now, whoever I am 40 years from now is going to be talking to your kid going, tell me what your mom did. And, you know, very avoidable. Natalie, lately I've been really overwhelmed with how avoidable so many of the stories I hear are. Whether it's health and, you know, just having a doctor who understood a little better or took 5 more minutes or, you know, that, or if it's, you know, a parent who, you know, doesn't make a baby when impregnated during an FBI raid. If we can all just make these very avoidable decisions, like how much differently other people's lives turn out. It sucks that when you're 19, you don't have the ability to know your 21-year-old daughter, because if you were 19 on Christmas morning and you felt that love that you have for your kid right now, and this guy was like, hey, you know what we should do? You'd be like, you know what? Get a condom, buddy, because I don't want to disappoint this little girl that I love so much. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but in my mind, like lately, I keep hearing stories and thinking, just if you just would have zigged when you zagged, or if somebody would have given you a chance, or, you know, a parent would have done a halfway decent job for you. You know, you wouldn't hear all these stories. Anyway, you're bumming me the fuck out, is what I'm saying. No, but sincerely, like, I'm really happy that you chose to share the story. As much as you think like my story is I went to jail, you know what I mean? Like, and I had diabetes. Like, I don't think that's the story at all. I think the story is that you're, two probably well-meaning, lovely alcoholic 20-year-olds, had you 40 years ago.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I see it. But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
How was this for you? Any good?
It was cool. Yeah? I liked it.
Did you? Good. I'm glad. How did I do? Because I'm always afraid that I'm going to like straddle the line on the wrong side when I'm trying to have these conversations.
No, you got to ask the tough questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Like the fact that you're like why? Like, do you realize that this doesn't seem normal?
Like, it's funny. Like,
you do realize this, right? Yeah.
You're hearing what you're saying, aren't you? Like, I can't think of the one is recently it went up. Because I think you listened to these. I stopped in the middle and I said, hey, PSA, don't let a guy who lives in a van get you pregnant. I was like, I was like, I don't know. I didn't realize that needed to be said. Okay. But punch him in the face and roll.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you realize, or people who find themselves in the situation you've been in over the years, if you knew that like 50 people like me heard your story, it's where it feels like nobody cares about each other, right? Like people who end up growing up in your situation say nobody cares, nobody understands. And people who aren't in your situation are like, you ought to like take some personal responsibility and get out of this, not understanding. I mean, it's why I read the ACEs list. It's not personal it's not, you know what I mean? It's not you not taking control. Somebody dug a hole 20 feet deep and then put a trapdoor in the bottom of it, then dropped a baby in it. That baby was you and said, hey, see if you can climb out of this hole.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The people I'm going to give you to help are a lady who pulls knives on people, drinks a lot, does drugs, a guy who's doing better than her, but isn't doing that much better than her. Don't worry, though. One day her sister will help her by giving her meth. Like, this baby's not getting out of this hole. Yeah. You know what I mean? And those are the people, like, you're like the worst episode of Dora the Explorer. Like, your monkey's high. You know what I mean? It's a backpack that's drunk and a monkey on meth trying to help you get through the jungle. And you're like, da, 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 da. And they're like, oh, no, we ain't getting you out of here.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So you're in this, you're a baby in a terrible situation. And by the way, the people who raised you very well could have been babies in terrible situations at one point.
Yeah.
Someone's got to stand up and push the guy in the van off of them. Like, or, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's up to women to make good, it's up to guys to make good decisions. Like, people just need to make better decisions in pivotal moments. And then all these very unavoidable things don't happen.
Absolutely.
But it's not what happens, Natalie. And then in the end, it becomes, it's every 4 years time to run for president. And so we all spend 2.5 years talking about the things leading up to it feels like somebody's always running for president. But people have these conversations in their real lives and somehow always boil it down to, well, they should take personal responsibility. Well, yeah, they should. But what are you going to do? Like, the baby's in the bottom of the hole and you're yelling down to it, take personal responsibility. It sucks.
It's true.
Yeah. I don't know what to do. What if we just said nobody could have a baby for like 5 years? Do you think that would give everybody time to reset or something? I don't know.
I really feel like the newer generation is having babies less and less.
Yeah, but that's not good either. We're going to run out of people.
Because the ones that are having babies are the ones that shouldn't be having babies.
Even if you say, like, do you ever notice this? But this is going to sound very generalized. And if you're a person with a lot of kids, I'm not talking, just please try not to get upset. You ever notice that people who are like, all like, wow, they really do seem to have it together and they really are doing well. Those people have 1 or 2 kids. And then like the guy who's got like a sign on their front yard that says something very strange that you drive by every day and go like, I hope that guy doesn't shoot me. Like, he seems to have 7 people, like children. And you're just like, how are we even going to like rebalance this? Like, so I just need a couple of common sense people to make some babies. I don't know. It's just very strange. I don't know how any of this gets fixed for you personally or for like you, because now your daughter's 21. Mm-hmm. The real hope here is that your daughter waits to have a baby until she's sorted through all of her crap.
Yes.
That's pretty much all that's what we should all be doing. Not just people who are your kid, but my kids should do the same thing. Everybody just get through your shit before you bring someone else into your mess. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Super simple.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's hard to do. It just really is. I don't know. You go to a party and you know, guys, a pretty girl. The next thing you know, you're like, we could probably have a baby. And then and you're too young to know what's wrong with you still. You know what I mean? Took you to 37 to figure out what you needed to fix.
Yeah.
I had problems I didn't know about. It took my wife being like, hey, that stuff's not okay. And I'm like, oh my God, she's right. But I actually had to listen to her and then like work over and over again at trying to like level that stuff out. And then she had to do the same. And we still had kids too early. So my kids are going to have problems that were avoidable if we would have waited longer. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of this. I'm just talking, but
yeah,
sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I feel bad.
You know, it also, it kind of probably sucks also being in your position and hearing all these things about other people. And you're constantly like with the what the fucks, like all the time.
I'm also tired today,
I don't
Natalie.
know if I'd be able to do it. I just feel like, like it is what it is. You know, what can I do? I just make it better, you know, try to help the next one, you know.
I had a very long weekend. And it's funny because I think if I told you what I did this weekend, you'd be like, if I got that much effort out of my parents spread out over 10 years, I would have been okay.
You guys do.
Arden came home from college, end of her sophomore year, and took her a while. And then she's like, I don't want to go back there. Here are my reasons. And some of her reasons were very, very poor direction from staff at the school. I am going to at some point tell the story of like something that a teacher said to her that will absolutely, anybody who's paid for 5 minutes worth of college, it will just floor you.
Oh.
And she's like, I'm going to change directions. You know, it took her a while to like get up the courage to even tell us that. Then she told us. But so she's starting up at a new college next week, excuse me. But we had until next Monday to get her stuff out of her place, 700 miles from here.
Oh.
On Friday afternoon, Arden got sick last week. So our last week was we came home from vacation. Arden got very sick. My father-in-law passed away. We went to his funeral.
Oh.
3 days later, we had to get into a car and drive 700 miles to go pick up her stuff. But she was still sick.
Oh.
So she and I drove that time. She drove in one car because we needed both cars to bring it back. I drove in another one. We left our house at 6 o'clock on Friday, drove until like 2 a.m, got a hotel room, slept, got up at 8 o'clock, drove 8.5 more hours, got there, had dinner, went to sleep, got up at 5 a.m, packed her car up, and drove back home.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So I've driven 1,400 miles in the last 48 hours or so.
Wow.
And I'm tired. And then on the way home last night, there was this horrible rainstorm on the East Coast. And so for about 3 hours last night, I was white knuckle driving, not able to see 5 feet in front of me.
Oh, gosh.
On top of that, knowing the knowledge of like every decision I made, my daughter was behind me in a car, like counting on me not to run into something or hit something.
Yeah.
And so it was horrible. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I've been alive a long time. It's the worst weather I've ever driven in my life. And we got home, decompressed, fell asleep. I woke up. When I woke up, my son was like, don't forget, you have to take me. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like getting dressed. I take him to this thing. I get home and then I ate 2 eggs and now I'm talking to you.
Dang.
I feel like I'm doing a bad job today. I don't know if I am, but I don't feel as clear as I want to be to have this conversation with you.
Well, do you at least get a rest after this?
Arden has a doctor's appointment she has to be at in 3 hours that I'm taking her to.
Oh, sort of.
In between there, I have nothing to do.
Oh, well, that's good. Go take a nap.
But am I wrong? Like, if we got into a time machine and went back and you said, Mom, Dad, I need you to drive with me 1,400 miles round trip in 2 days to help me with something, do you think your parents would be like, yeah, let's go?
At this age? Absolutely no.
How about back then?
Back then?
20 years ago.
Maybe. Like, if I wasn't like an addict and like, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Only because there's been a couple times where my parents have driven taken a few trips to go save my sister in a different state type thing, nice. Or try and change her situation around when she wasn't doing well. They put a lot of effort in my sister.
Yeah.
And I think they just kind of backed off with me being like, we can't save her. So
it's interesting though, isn't it, to watch people who are so steeped in a problem that even though they want to, and I would believe that. I would believe that your parents love you and care about you and want to do something good for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't know what that means and you're put into that situation, then the help you give is often, it's help on that level. It's not the kind of help that's actually going to get you out of a thing.
Correct.
Do you think that you actually needed the legal trouble to break free of all this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everyone's
100%. Absolutely. Even though I was at a very limited capacity on being a good mother, as soon as I became a mother, it changed everything to me. Like, she is the blessing I didn't know I needed in my life.
Mm.
A lot of the expenses at her life, unfortunately for her, she's had to deal with a lot of trauma and pain that she didn't deserve. But she saved my life. She gave me a reason to want to be better and to do better.
Yeah. It's got to be something. I mean, it's part of the human condition. It just has to be, because the amount of people who will tell me all the time, like, I didn't really take good care of my diabetes until I had a baby or wanted to have a baby,
mm-hmm.
or met this girl and I knew like I wanted to be married and have a family. And so I had to do this thing. Like every adult who struggled through their teens, early 20s with their diabetes, who no longer does, has some version of that story. I mean, not everyone,
mm-hmm.
but a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like some version of I couldn't do it for me, but I was able to do it for somebody else.
Yeah.
That's that story. And that is what happened to you with drugs instead of diabetes.
Absolutely.
And then your diabetes care came along after you were clear and you felt better.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this with me and for laying that out like that, because I believe more people than we would want to think are in your situation.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
really.
yeah. Well, thanks for having me, though.
Are you kidding me? Thanks for having me. You don't send a note about Tent City and jail and meth and think a guy
I'm
making
sorry to get more into the Tent City thing. I know a lot of people are really excited to hear about that. I mean, kind of hard to talk about also, you know what I mean? It's like what you see like on TV and what you hear about and read about, that's how it was.
Yeah.
Listen,
I don't think anybody listening doesn't hear Tent City and can't fill in the blanks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you're arrested for something. It's not nothing. I'm not saying it's nothing, but, it's not.
It's more socially acceptable.
Well, you didn't commit a crime with a gun. You didn't hurt anybody, like that kind of stuff. Like, right. So you're going to go to jail,
right.
and rightfully so. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Outside in Arizona in a tent with a fan.
Yeah, that's the part that's crazy about it. Yeah.
No, it's insane, right? And you said you lost weight. Did you lose weight there?
What, the 65 pounds?
Yeah.
No, I lost that when I decided to get sober. Then the last 3 years.
That was being sober helped you with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez. You're in a good relationship now.
I am.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Look at you.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to say goodbye, but I wanted to reiterate, as crazy as this has all been, and God bless you, it's been crazy. This is a story. You're only 40. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
You're only 40. I know you're laughing because you're like, I know I've lived like 17 lives, but you're only 40. Your daughter's only 21. There's a real world. I mean, it's been 3 years you've been clean. There's a real world where 5 or 10 years from now, this all just seems like a distant memory.
It already does seem like a distant memory. Like, I have a hard time believing a lot of the stuff that I did.
Mm.
And I went through. Like, was that really me? Like,
mm-hmm.
But I can't forget it. I don't want to forget how horrible I felt, the depression that came with it, the sadness, the loss of hope. That's the part I don't want to forget.
Yeah. You felt hopeless.
But like, it's like, I stole cars. Like, who does that?
You stole
what I mean? Like, people, I mean, that's kind of cool at the same time. Like, I stole cars. Like, I bought a mixer. I mean,
you can see, it's so crazy that you can see it from both perspectives. You're like, who would steal a person's car? This is horrible. And how cool is it that I stole a car?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who's going to do that? I mean,
I take your point while you're saying it. I was like, oh, you have a foot in both sides. But like,
Yeah.
How interesting. It'll be really interesting to see how you talk about it 10 more years from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you'll keep changing, if you'll be able to stay like one foot on both sides of understanding of this, or if as time passes and you are quote unquote normal for longer, living a normal life, if you won't look back more harshly on it as time goes by.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
Interesting. All right. Natalie, I'm going to say thank you because I feel like I could talk to you forever and it's not fair to anybody because, it's getting long now. Thank you very, very much for doing this. Would you hold on for 1 second for me?
Yeah.
Thanks. A huge thanks to a longtime sponsor, Touched by Type 1. Please check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and at touchedbytype1.org. If you're looking to support an organization that's supporting people with type 1 diabetes, check out Touched by Type 1. You can use the same continuous glucose monitor that Arden uses. All you have to do is go to Dexcom.com/juicebox and get started today. That's right, the Dexcom G7 is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. I can't thank you enough for listening. Please make sure you're subscribed or following in your audio app. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.